What's the most underrated rivalry in college football to you right now? Not the ones that grab all the marquee headlines and attention and whatnot. So no Ohio State, Michigan, no Auburn, Alabama, or anything like that. But the ones that are underrated, the ones when you watch, you say, whoa, but you really never see them on the top 10 lists. What if I told you I got a rivalry? The schools are separated by 360 miles. One is 9-2 versus the other in conference play over the last 11 years, and both will perennially have national championship aspirations. That rivalry is Texas A&M versus LSU. And there's some real genuine hatred here. And I don't think the country knows about it. I don't think in Spokane, Washington or Modesto, California, when you guys are watching SEC football from a distance, you realize the fundamental hatred and disdain that exists between Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and College Station, Texas. There are many reasons for it, but I just want to detail a few and why this is so important on the national landscape. Because here's the fundamental issue in the SEC West. It's the only division in college football where there are three programs with genuine Tier 1 expectation. To be clear, Tier 1 expectations are not only where your fan base expects you to contend for the playoff every year, also the rest of the country expects it. So not maybe this year, but moving forward, 2023 or 4 and beyond, Texas A&M with Jimbo, it'll be expected of him every year. It's always expected of Alabama, and it will be expected of Brian Kelly at LSU. Maybe not this year, but years moving forward after this year. There aren't enough wins to go around. It's always going to be a problem as long as you are hiring and spending the way they do in the SEC West. Bama's a safe bet. When we're talking about playoff expectations, Bama's going to be there. So then we follow up with this question. Who's the other one? There's really only room for one other mainstay, unless they just play hopscotch every other year. Is it Texas A&M or is it LSU? Is it Jimbo Fisher or is it Brian Kelly? Now this thing got red hot for a little while when it was Jimbo versus Ed Orgeron. Remember there was this whole deal where LSU, from the outside, it looked like they were flirting with Jimbo Fisher, and some people would tell you it was never going to happen, and some people would tell you Jimbo's representation used LSU to get the deal he really wanted at Texas A&M. Well, anyway, however it played out, they never forgot it. And so Jimbo's at LSU, and you just add in the fact that there were rumors this past December, January, it was drawn out a little bit. You add that in, that's part one of the special sauce there. But then when you got Ed Orgeron in there, and you had them win a national championship in 2019, and he was the guy that was the afterthought. He was kind of the backup option for LSU. That made it really spicy. That was great, and it was also this thing with LSU and Texas too. But I don't think that the intensity of this rivalry has reached its potential apex yet. Because I think what Brian Kelly versus Jimbo Fisher could be carries way more volume with it over the long term than anything Ed Orgeron was ever going to do there against Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. LSU needs a presence in Houston. They need a presence in East Texas on the recruiting trail. And there's a stat that's floating around that still is kind of mind-blowing. There was a point late in the signing day cycle, towards the second signing day, that I think is still true, And it was, if you take just the kids A&M signed from the greater Houston area in the last recruiting cycle, that alone would have constituted safely a top 15 class. I think at one point it was a top 10 class. It may still be there. Billy Lucci over on TexAgs had that stat, and I looked at it like 3 times, and I said, is that true? Carry the 1, add 4, plus 2. Yep, he's right. So something's got to give there. Because Brian Kelly's looking around, and sure, you bring him in, and he wants to try and lock down the state of Louisiana, but LSU's always been at their best when they can recruit the greater Houston area as well. You see, we were talking about Oklahoma. How well are they going to recruit Texas a little while ago? LSU, same deal. How are they going to recruit Texas? Then, again, we're talking about the most fierce rivalry. Do I need to remind anyone where this falls on the schedule? This is what's really juicy and really interesting about this. When you talk about rivalry college football, most of the rivalry games are reserved for rivalry week, which is the last week of the regular season. That's where they play. A&M and LSU, they already play last week of the regular season. Now, the ramifications on this game itself, now and moving forward, are already going to be significant. Just because of what the game itself means for the two teams, you could also have SEC Western Division implications. You could have New Year's Six implications. But if we're talking about these teams truly ascending to SEC championship game contention, SEC West contention, then think about what we're saying. Because if you're in that category, your goal is to win a national championship. Think about the road. And think about for either one of these teams. If you're Texas A&M, let's say you are A&M and your goal is to win a national championship. For the foreseeable future, here's what that means. That means the last 4 games you play are going to consist of a top 10 caliber LSU, easily, if you go to Atlanta, a top 5 caliber SEC Eastern Division opponent. Then you got the semifinal game against a top 4 team, and then you got the national championship game against the top 4 team. So that means either one of these programs, to fulfill their ultimate goal of winning a national championship, they got to run through 4 top 10 caliber teams in a row to get it done. Doesn't sound that easy to me. You know, in this whole win is a win, your record says you're our world we apparently live in, that's tough. It forces you to go 4 for 4, and there aren't many other programs who face that kind of task, and that's before they expand this precious playoff. And once they expand it, I have no clue how many you're going to have to run through. Maybe 100, maybe 200. Is there really any limit to how many playoff games are good for the sport?